Welcome everyone. This is our 13th episode of World Talent Economy Forum. Today we are with another of our guests. She is Miss Catherine, and she has lot of experience on depressions. She can change your mood. I'm sure she is very dynamic. She is very influential, and she loves human resources. And she want to contribute for human resources with United Nations to all of many of the research organizations around the world. She has very good contributions. Today we will know about how we can change our mood, how we can overcome the depressions and many things, because in pandemic situations mood is very important. Depression is a very problematic thing. So today we will discuss on that point and how we can overcome from this situation. So hello, Miss Catherine, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, yes, I'm fine. Can I
Good.
say something about yourself, your organization, your jobs, your expertise, your experience, and most importantly, your place situation in how they overcome from these COVID-19 challenges?
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me here. First of all, it's so great to be here. I run a company called the Mood Factory, and the Mood Factory is all about engaging your senses to get into the present moment, which is a really important skill during times of stress. So, especially right now during COVID-19, a lot of things become unknown. So, we tend to get in our mind, we worry about the future or we ruminate about the past. And if we can just get present, we can have a significant impact on our mood states. So I do that with my company, and I teach courses around happiness and serenity, which is really stress reduction. So that's kind of one part of me. I'm a business person, and then I also run a nonprofit, and we have a program that teaches hope. So hope is pretty much the opposite of hopelessness, and hopelessness is the only predictor of suicide. It's the number one symptom of depression. It's a key symptom of anxiety. And yet, the more hopeful we are, the less likely we are to have anxiety and depression. So, if we can amp up our skills for hope, we can reduce our likelihood for anxiety and depression in the future. And so, my nonprofit created a program that actually teaches the skills for hope. Now, hopelessness is a feeling of despair. So, the two things that make up hopelessness, a feeling of despair and a sense of helplessness, so an inability to act. And so, what we teach in Hope is how to get from negative feelings to positive feelings, and then how to take inspired action and set SMART goals. So, those are really the two components of Hope, and we're teaching those to. We have a free program on Hopeful Minds, and we're teaching it around the world. We just launched our new program that so parents can teach it at home. Anyone can use it.
Mhm.
I mean, the
Brilliant.
good news about mental health is there's a lot we can proactively do to take care of our mental health and wellness, especially in times of extreme stress.
Mhm. Oh no, this is actually a very challenging moment around the world. Uh, Based on your scientific research, what do you think? How people overcome from these present situations? What kind of problem they have to face, and how they can, because everything is mindset, right? Everything is mindset. If I have a
It is.
positive
Yeah.
mindset, if we have a positive mindset, then we can move forward. So, what's your suggestion? What the deeper analysis you have for your audience?
Yeah, and that's the thing. So in my company, we teach 21-day courses. So the challenge is we have learned negative behaviors when we're growing up. We learn kind of bad habits for our happiness and well-being. We're taught a lot of things that are inconsistent with wellness. And the good news is our brain can get rewired, and yet it takes constant, continual practice, present moment awareness, and continual daily dedication to it. A lot of times when we get into stressful situations, we let go of the things that are good for us and we grab on to things like eating a lot or not working out because we don't have time and worrying about things in our head. And these things are not helpful to our overall well being. And so We know that, first of all, getting engaged into the present moment, so getting out of our mind and using your senses. So right now, like if you touch something, if you focus on touching something or you smell something using your five senses, you get out of your mind. So using your senses is a great way to get in the now when you start to worry about things. A lot of the things we worry about in life are things we cannot control. So if you get really into the mindset of worrying, watching the news, worrying about what's going to happen next, when you can't control it, you're having a negative impact on your mental health. And I tell people, you wouldn't put yourself in front of a really bad TV show and watch that TV show and just stay there and make yourself watch it. And yet we do that in our mind all the time. We play these negative scenarios over and over and we don't do anything about it. And so that is really the first key thing, is to get ourselves out of our mind in that state of worry or that rumination. So thinking about the past over and over and getting into the present moment. Because only in the present moment can we start to address the challenges that we have.
Okay, very good idea. I just want to know, because now all of the world going shutdowns. Even we do discuss with India, it's a 1.38 billion people in Malaysia, in everywhere. It's the biggest shutdowns. I think it's never happened in our lifetime. This kind of things, even the world
Mhm.
never see get this kind of
Yeah.
experience. So when a long time a man or woman or anybody's, they are actually inside the house long time, what what the mental challenges may happen, and what your suggestion for this kind of how they can face this kind of situation.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the challenges of being in lockdown is our stress response gets elevated. And when we get triggered and we're in close connection with other people, and other people can trigger our stress responses. And so if other people trigger us, there is 90 seconds from when you get triggered. So say I say something to you that upsets you, gets you angry. Your body has a physiological response to that. And you have a choice there. You can either engage in that moment, which escalates the problem, or you can take 90 seconds of deep breathing to calm down the physiological response happening in your body so you can come to whatever was challenging to you or triggering to you with a more an easier response, a softer response, or take a break. But we know that the domestic violence goes up significantly during these times. Things like addiction, things like overeating, drug use. And it is key that we take, I mean, it happens because we're triggered emotionally and we don't want to address the emotions. And so we reach out for something to help us in that moment, whether it's projecting anger onto someone else or eating something that gets us, happy for the moment, but isn't healthy for us long term. So it's learning how to take that 90-second pause and stopping so that our body, our physiological response calms down. Because it's normal that we would want to act, we would want to fix the feelings of discomfort. And yet those choices that we make when we're in an elevated, stressed out space, they don't help us longer term. So it's about learning how to do that. You're right. There's a lot of this we haven't faced. And yet there are, historically, there are flus, there are situations that we can learn from. And the key is to maintain a hopeful mindset, to be very diligent about all of the practices that we know that help us maintain a hopeful mindset during this time of elevated stress. Because our cortisol in our body, which is our stress hormone, is getting activated a lot. And so it's even more important that we do the things like meditation, that we do the things like eat healthy foods, exercise. I mean, you can exercise in a confined space. That we do things like connect to other people on video. And reach out for support, get therapy if you need additional support. There are a lot of new resources that are available now. we just launched our program that teaches hope to kids. And I have always said, I learn about hope most by teaching others and teaching kids. And so read the program with your kids and learn about what hope is and these things that are related to keeping a hopeful mindset.
Very interesting. Even though example in our family life, we also see many people has problem for cortisols and this kind of hormonal things. But example, there is not proper treatment, and people do not get proper treatment. Many depression things happening, many things happening around the world. So, what do you think? How you and your company globally can involve this kind of things, and how your company can solve this kind of issues?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that my company alone can solve it. We can give tools. And this is the one thing I always tell everyone is that we can give tools and suggestions, but we can't change your mood. So the only one responsible for how you feel is you. Like we can give you tools and suggestions and ideas and the science of what works, but really it's up to you to use them, to implement them in your daily life. I can tell you how important these practices are. I mean, we know the happier you are, the more successful you are in life. It's not vice versa. It's not success doesn't bring happiness. Being happy brings success. We know that you're more productive, you're more engaged. We know the better you're able to manage stress, the better outcomes you have as well. And yet we can't do these for you. So we have courses, online courses, the Mood Factory does 21 days to happiness. We have a 21 days to serenity that on Monday, I'm launching the 21 days to serenity, where every day we'll do one thing that's been shown to decrease stress and add serenity to your life. And yet I can't force you to do those practices. If you're in the midst of a depressive episode, I mean, a lot of the research says therapy and medication combined are the two things that can help you if you're in a major depressive episode. I think being proactive about managing your mood states is really important. Like we need to all be practicing these skills all the time during these times of stress. But again, if you're in a major depressive episode, you may not be able to exercise, and it's going to be up to you to reach out to online therapy or get support on that. So.
Yes, I have more questions. Like example, what's the present situation of USA in area about this COVID-19 situations, or how you work in that situation actually?
Yeah, I am doing all of my meetings remotely. We're not traveling at all. I usually am on the road 80% of the time, so we're not flying. We're doing Zoom meetings, we're doing virtual meetings. And yeah, there's a significant amount of stress. I mean, the kids are getting taught at home. I'm staying right now with my nieces and my brother and sister-in-law, and they have to do school online. So they have to sit in front of a computer for 4 hours a day to do their classwork. Now, I'm sure for any of you that have young kids, you know that is not, that is hard. It's hard to get them to sit still with their friends and other people, but for them to change to this kind of learning tool is a complete shift, and it's causing a lot of stress and anxiety with young kids, with the parents who now have to be policing their kids and schoolwork. They're trying to manage. These parents also have jobs that they're now expected to do from home without childcare. We can't send our kids to childcare. So it's been a real shift for workers and for American families and for kids and how kids are learning. They don't think they're going to be going back to school in the fall. There's potentially colleges, but the young kids, they're talking about maybe 2 days a week they'll go into school, and they have to be socially distanced. So there are so many changes happening to just the way of life, and it is even more important that we practice our skills of presence, of extreme presence, so that we're dealing with each challenge as it comes up and trying to resolve it as best we can. We know the research on hope. So, hope is a positive feeling and inspired action. So you have to have a vision for something. You have to feel good about it, and you have to take steps in that direction. And we know our ability to navigate change is really predictive of how we'll stay hopeful, how hopeful we'll stay. And there is a massive amount of change happening right now. And I talk, for instance, to my niece. She is really upset because she can't see her friends. So she can't be playing with her friends. And, I've talked to her about, well, if you're really attached to playing with your friends and school, being in school with your friends, you're going to be really unhappy because you cannot change that. You can't control that. And it's going to be your ability to adapt and to enjoy the moment and the new experiences you have being at home with your family and engaging with them and learning in a new way and contributing to school in a new way. It's going to be your ability to shift your kind of goal and enjoy the moment and stay present and engaged. But the more she gets anxious about it and the anxiousness turns to anxiety, the harder time she's going to have. And so it's super important that right now we're teaching these skills to kids and teaching how important it is to maintain a hopeful mindset so that no matter what life brings, we can navigate the change. I mean, this is one of the biggest changes and potentially we'll ever see. And yet we don't know the benefits that this time will have brought to us and to the environment. And it's our ability to stay present and appreciating and grateful of what we do have, and being innovative. So when we're in a state of fear, a state of anxiety, anger, all of these kind of what we call negative emotions, we're not in our evolved part of our brain. So we're not in the frontal lobe, which is where we can problem solve and be creative and come up with new ideas and figure out new strategies. And that's what really hope is all about. It's figuring out how we can get out of the reptilian brain of our fight or flight response and get back to that creative solving, problem solving, happier, innovative place, because that's going to be the way that we come up with new solutions to what seems a really large challenge.
Mhm. Very interesting, very interesting. Like, why, like example, depression, because human being is very interesting, because I'm not a scientist like you in that arena, but like we have hope as well as we have a lot of depressions. What the two different things happen in the same human beings, or what's the way that we can abolish the depression from our mindset or from
Yeah.
our mental health?
Yeah. So, yeah. And as I mentioned, so depression, the major symptom of depression is hopelessness. And hopelessness is, and I've been depressed, I've been clinically depressed, I've attempted suicide, and hopelessness is the only predictor of suicide. Hopelessness is two things. Hopelessness is a feeling of despair, and it's a sense of helplessness. So, like, we can't do anything. So, changing those two things, attacking those two things are what it takes to go from hopelessness to hope. Now, we can feel hopeless about one thing. We can feel hopeless. We don't have a job. We can't pay the bills. So we can get in a feeling of despair about that and a sense of helplessness. We can't do anything about it. The first thing we have to do is we have to work on our negative feelings and release those negative emotions associated with it. So again, we get out of our reptilian brain, out of the fear, anger, all of those emotions, and we get back to the frontal lobe so that we can start being creative and problem solving and shift our mindset related to it. And only when we've shifted our mindset do we want to start taking actions to address the problem. I mean, there is no problem someone somewhere in the world hasn't solved. They have come out of the depths of despair and darkness with an inability to act. They've been homeless, they've been sick, and they've come out through using those two strategies to get to a better place. And so I think it's really important that we shift the mindset related to that, and out of that despair, and then get to taking smart and inspired action. So those are really the two kind of key ingredients. Even if it means talking to a therapist and getting on medication so that we can get our feeling state into a more positive place and out of that stuck energy. Because that stuck energy is where we don't want to be. But we also don't want to be in an angry state, lashing out at other people, because that doesn't lead to productive, creative solutions either. That just creates more despair in our life.
Mhm. Just one thing, just we want to know more. Like from your profile, we see that you work in different organizations, especially for UN and this kind of organization. Can you share your experience with our audience, like the when you working and how you works and how it will make you more dynamic in this different industry? Because your when I saw your topic, mood factory, it's something positive, it's
Mm-hmm.
something different. That's why we are very interested
Yeah.
to know more about your activities.
Yeah. So I started my company. So I don't work at the UN, but I've shared my story at the United Nations a few times and advocated for mental health, to address mental health and to invest in mental health, to add mental health in the Sustainable Development Goals, because our mental health is key to all of our outcomes in life. So when we look at hope, hope is a predictor of how well kids will do in school. More so than their IQ. Their levels of hope will actually predict how well they'll do in school. It'll predict how well they do in sports, how long they live, how quickly they recover from disease. So hope is a critical skill that all kids and all of us really must learn. But I started my company. I mean, my company is really about consumer products. And so we have a scent line based on how smells affect your moods. Because as I said, we're out of the present moment 50% of the time. And just by getting into the present moment, we can have a significant impact on how we feel. So, like if you work with kids and they seem distracted and they're all over the place and you can tell they're not here engaged in the moment, tell them to smell something, tell them to look at something, and they will immediately shift their state from their mind to the present moment. And so that's what my company is about. I had a brand called Mood Lights. We sold them in Lowe's Home Improvement and a number of other retailers, and I raised a bunch of money for the nonprofit. But I developed the nonprofit at the same time because I saw that mental health was the images of people they depicted with mental health challenges were, in a corner. It made me want to cry. I felt hopeless when I looked at these pictures, and I thought that is not representative of mental health. I mean, we all have mental health, and I felt like mental health really needed a rebrand. And then as I got more engaged in the space, I learned, I really believe that depression and anxiety are preventable, that we can prevent them if we use the tools that we know work, change our behaviors, change our thought patterns, start becoming more engaged into the present moment. And I really believe we have way more power than we think. And are intentional about it. So I think we over-medicate ourselves. I know I over-medicated myself because I didn't want to deal with how painful the feelings were, and I wanted to escape doing some of the work. But yet, if I am in the present moment and I experience the feelings as they come up, and I listen to what negative feelings tell me. So if I get angry about something, instead of lashing out, or instead of drinking alcohol or smoking a cigarette or doing any kind of drugs or hitting someone or any of these different things, if we can listen to the anger and what the anger is telling us and really feel and experience the anger and just kind of release the energy associated with it, that 90 seconds, and then take action, we can change our lives dramatically. Really, I really believe that. And I know it's true for me, and it's true for so many. So, so I work in business, and so I just speak at a lot of conferences and about the different types of work that I do. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I don't have a PhD. I'm not a scientist by education, and yet I am a scientist by nature. So I'm always studying everything. I'm learning from the experts in the field. I'm taking pieces of what they're doing that I think work and has mass appeal and can have mass impact, and incorporating that into my work. And yeah, constantly trying to improve and really learn from incredible people. So I was blessed because I came at mental health from a business perspective 15 years ago, when there weren't any other business or marketing people really that were going to the World Health Organization has a yearly kind of invite only event where they look at mental health around the world. And so I was really one of the only ones there from that kind of a business mindset, because I believe so much of this we can solve globally without a ton of investment. I think we know a lot more. The program we have that Teaches Hope is free. We developed it in a way that it can be used across cultures. And we know that if we teach kids young, they change their behaviors in a much easier way. That when we get to be 40 or 50 and we start addressing some of these challenges, it's a lot harder at that age. It's a lot more cost effective to deal with it at a very young, whole school approach. Every child needs to learn these skills around hope. We should be teaching all of them these skills.
Very interesting. Let's say I want to give you a case study. Now everything shut down. Then after 15
Mm-hmm.
days or 1 month, our all of the official activities and everything open. So that time, by this time, many people actually depressed, and for economically and physically, many people sick. Many thing happens. So what's your suggestions when they go to their new norms, with their uh, 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 work locations? What type of challenges they can face, and for both of the group, like for corporations, for their employees, how they can take care of them, as well as the employees, like who actually can take care by themselves, and what's the process, and what's the challenges at present situation. Yes.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, two things I'll say. One is that throughout this whole thing, throughout the whole COVID, a lot of people have been just getting themselves stuck watching the news all the time, eating, stuff that's not good for us, lying around, I mean, it is so important that you're proactive right now about your mental health. I do a live stream through my company, the Mood Factory, every day. We have a group called Mood Makers, and I share strategies every day that you can be doing to address your mental health. So this is one thing. We as individuals have to be proactive and have to take responsibility for our mood states. Now, that being said, a lot of people don't have, some of the skills or access. But please, like today, sign up and join our group on Mood Makers and start really, because you can, as you increase your levels of hope, you can prevent the likelihood of anxiety and depression. And yet, it's up to an individual to do the work. For those that have been in high stress state, haven't been able to use the tools that, medication and therapy are combined. Like, you can do things to change. I mean, medication isn't perfect, and there is so much we don't know. The brain is the most complex organ in the human body, and it has been invested in the least amount. So we've invested way more into the heart and heart disease than we have in the brain, and yet the brain is so complex. So, medications aren't perfect, and yet they can help in terms of getting some of your neurotransmitters elevated. Now, they work differently for everyone, and they can put you into more of a suicidal state. So it's really important that you have support if you do go on medications. But this is, again, something you want to talk to your doctor about. I have no opinion on medications. I know people that love them, people that don't like them. And yet I know that therapy and medication combined are supportive. And it's important that companies encourage therapy if people feel they need therapy and provide access to therapy. We know intervention, so providing therapy has a much better return on your investment than treating depression when it gets far down far down the line. So when, if employees are absent and other health issues arise from depression and whatnot. So it's important for companies to be really proactive about mental health, and even, again, giving tools to preventative things like courses so that employees become aware of how things impact their mental health and employees are proactive about it. So we have a 21-day Serenity course, which is kind of strategies for stress. Give your employees access to these kinds of tools so they can be practicing healthy habits and behaviors during significant times of stress. The problem is, as a society, we go through this period of COVID, right? And we're not proactive with our employees. We aren't giving our employees these tools. So employees have elevated cortisol, they have stress, they're not managing their stress and anxiety. They go into a major depressive episode. And we then have a much more costlier problem to our business, to society. This major depressive episode impacts everyone around them. And so, we as employers have to be much more proactive about the tools that we're giving to our employees, because it costs business not to do that too. It's the right thing to do, but it's also the smart business decision to make.
Mhm. Yes, very interesting, very interesting. Okay, now the second phase, like example, we are from developing nations. So we know China, we know India, even I'm from Malaysia. So how actually developing nations, because they have many underprivileged people, how they focus on this mental health? What's your advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of free apps now for peer-to-peer support. We've tested our program in Malaysia with some success. So, I mean, there are a lot of free resources, and it's a matter of being proactive, taking advantage of the resources. We just launched our program, Hopeful Minds. It is free, and you can go in and you can download it, and you can start teaching your kids right away these skills that help us: meditation, deep breathing, some of the science behind it, the science of what happens when when our stress gets elevated. We have something called heart rate variability. The heart rate variability decreases, and we want a high heart rate variability. And yet, by deep breathing exercises, we can improve our heart rate variability. So, and we talk about that in the curriculum and provide a lot of additional resources and the science around hope and the importance of hope and the importance of it as a skill. So there's tons of free resources available that anyone anywhere globally can use. It's a matter of being proactive in your communities, and then you all getting the message out to all of the remote areas, and so working on that and your communication and your infrastructure. Just because I mean, a lot of people here in the US don't have access to a lot of the therapy or medication or a lot of different things. So we definitely deal with some of the same challenges here, and yet there are a lot of free tools, and I think it's a matter of just communicating, getting those out to those to really all. I mean, we all need to learn what hope is right now and how to elevate our levels of hope.
Mhm. Very interesting. Okay, like example, I just want to give you go for more detail. Let's say
Okay.
in like example, most of the language and everything in English, but I am also from academic field. I find that many of our students they have language barriers. So in that situation, how this kind of resources actually helpful for them, or how your organization can help them with any kind of online conference or any kind of discussion or anything.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, the best thing to do, and they've done this all over the world, is download the curriculum and then translate it into your local language. I mean, and translate the key content. It's to be like, we all have to be really innovative right now, because I'm, one person, and, we have a small team, and our goal was to make this so it was accessible to everyone, and then hand it to you, and then you all have got to be really innovative on how you then how you get the word out to your communities. In Suriname, they translated it themselves. So they translated it from English to actually Danish because they have Danish teachers there. And so the Danish teachers then understood it and delivered it in classrooms. So, I mean, we don't have resources to go out and train everyone and teach everyone, but we wrote it in a way so that anyone can download it, translate it into the language they need, or find someone in the local community that can help them translate it and then deliver it in those communities. We all have to be super innovative because we all have limited resources right now. And yet, I believe that it's such a critical skill that we all need. And anxiety and depression are so costly to society. And it's not just financial costs, it's the human cost, and then it's how it impacts all of society as well. And yet people that are like have the potential for anxiety and depression are the most creative and brilliant and innovative people in the world. So we really need to support. I mean, so many of our great leaders struggled with depression and struggled with anxiety. And so these tools are people that are going to, if they're given the tools they need to help navigate these challenges, are potentially the ones in your society that are going to come up with the most innovative, creative ways to address some of your other challenges. And so it's really important that we get these needs out.
Very interesting. So you want to that is the point actually. World Talent Economy Forums. We want to create a ecosystems like from the USA, from even Asia, from Europe to Africa, everywhere. We want to make a better ecosystem by which we can transfer our knowledge and we can overcome from our limitations. We know everybody has a limitation. Every organization has limitations, but we want to transfer our knowledge, we want to transfer our process and everything. Okay, let's move on to the other part of the sites. We want to know more about you and about your cultures, because we know that the USA has many different cultures and many important things that maybe from Malaysia, from Asia to US culture is different. So can you share something from your town, from your city, what you want to share?
Sure. Well, I live in Reno, Nevada. I'm in Oregon right now, and it's beautiful in Oregon. There's just trees everywhere. I've been to Malaysia a few times. I've been to Kuching, loved it.
Mhm.
Did some work there with Hope and kids and teaching kids. And so, yeah, I mean, our culture, I mean, we have such a mixed, I grew up in Chicago in a big city and really grew up in a really diverse community. So I was fortunate in that way. I was exposed to many different cultures at a very young age. My school, we had 4,000 students in my high school, and all different ethnicities. So I was really fortunate to be blessed with just exposure to all different kinds of people, and I'm inspired by different cultures and yeah, ethnicities and learning. So I've traveled a lot extensively to continue this work and my passion for it. I don't know, I don't know what specifically you'd like to know, but it's yeah, we have a lot bigger buildings and structures, and the roadways are we have a lot of organized roadways, and I don't know, I think America is a blending of all different cultures. We have a lot of different environments and animals here, and yeah, you should come and find out.
Okay, very interesting. Okay, like example, when you build up these things, like example, this is completely different things. We do not find many of the company doing this kind of mood factory, depression related work, but this is important. Even like I told you, like we are starting a discussion with the Australian forums and the researcher, especially they say that depression is a major problem right now. We have to solve it, and we have to do more research on that. Why you choose this kind of different industry? Why you think in different way? What's the major things you are like you in come in
Yeah,
your
I
mind?
mean, I guess, yeah, well, I worked for a number of major companies. So I worked for American Express and I helped them do rebranding from IDS to American Express. And I helped big brands like Tylenol and from Johnson and Johnson and Procter and Gamble products in retail. So, and then I worked in advertising a bit. So I worked for a number of different companies in different capacities. And when I launched my own brand, so I was fascinated by what, I mean, first of all, I was very close to my dad growing up. So he was a retail banker and he was very smart and had a master's degree. And yet he struggled a lot with anger issues and not being able to, not controlling his emotions. And that had a significant impact on his relationships. And so I always wanted to make my dad happy. You know, I was really close with him and I was always trying to figure out, you know, what can I do to like, why why can't he just be happy? Like, why does he get triggered like this? And really passionate about doing that for my dad and really kind of, so when I lost him, when I was devastated and, you know, I couldn't understand why I couldn't save him and I couldn't fix him and I couldn't help him. And so when I then attempted to take my own life in my mid 20s, I was shocked at myself because I thought, I didn't think I would ever do that because I saw the pain that suicide causes for other people. And I came to realize, you know, we're all at risk. I mean, we all have mental health. We all have to be proactive about managing our mental health. And I have a pretty high risk for suicide because, you know, I have a genetic predisposition because of my father and his sister. And then I have, you know, major life events can trigger depressive episodes and more risk for depression. But experiences, I knew I had to be very proactive about my mental health. So when I also knew that I wanted to eventually create my own brand. So my own product line. My dad was really big into Walmart and retail banking. So he was a retail banker. And so we used to go into every single Walmart and like look at just-in-time inventory. And, you know, he knew why Walmart would be successful way before it became successful. And he taught me a lot about retail and brands. And I thought, why aren't there more really brands that are doing good? Like, why do we just come up with new flavors for something like toothpaste? We why don't they have like purpose? Why don't brands have more of a purpose? And so, and this was growing up, I thought this. And so I knew that I wanted to do that. And so when I created my own brand, when I'd gotten a ton of experience and when I created, so I wanted to eventually improve our mood states. Marketing is when you put a logo on the front of a product and you say it donates a certain percentage to this cause, which, and that doing cause marketing can have a really profound impact on stigma, which is really just a negative perception on something. And so I created my own brand and I ended up creating my own nonprofit to support this brand, but it was really focused on what improves our moods. And you know, as I mentioned, engaging your senses improves your mood, but the sense of sight, right? So you can even be more intentional. So when you want to feel better, what you look at, you know, your sight impacts how we feel. So if you look at specific colors, that's going to have an impact on your mood state. And a lot of the research on colors and moods is not a physiological response in our body, but it's an association that our brain makes. So for instance, if we look at it in a tranquil, so it goes to that state. Same with green. Green often makes us feel renewed and refreshed. And so I created a line based on how colors are related to moods. And the research around the engaging your senses is the more powerful it is. So if you can engage the sense of sound, music. So if you're in a bad mood and you put a good song on, an uplifting song, that'll have an impact on your mood state. And then if you can add a scent to it, an even more powerful impact. And then if you add something you look at that's, more powerful. So, there's so much we can't control in life, and yet our environment is sometimes we can control, or we can add triggers in our environment. And so that was the goal of the Mood Factory, is to create product lines that help engage our senses to improve our moods, to get present. Like, you can do meditation to help calm down the mind, but what does it take to really enjoy being here, to really enjoy and be productive and engaged? And so our five senses are really helpful for doing that. And so, I developed the company with the idea of, I want to improve moods all over. And I want to do that through the products themselves. And then I want to do that through cause marketing, giving back. And so my first product line, we raised about $1 million for charity, and part of that went to develop this curriculum that teaches hope around the world, based on the research that hope is a skill you can create and you can practice. And it's true. And we know the earlier we teach kids or the skills around hope, the more powerful and the more integrated it is into all they do. We can't control other people's mood states. We can give them tools and suggestions, and yet ultimately they have to do, individuals have to do the work.
Yes, very interesting. Actually, like this is many major problems. Like maybe we face in our personal life, we face in our family life, but we never focus on that particular points. But this is very important. You are talking about cost and this kind of things. Do you have any specific data or something every years? Like what if we do not take care of our mental health? What will be the financial lose or something for every human, or in any kind of specific data for that?
Yeah, the World Bank put out a report that it's like $2.5 trillion every year. I mean, it's hard to quantify for certain. But I think that was the latest number. It was 2.5 trillion yearly by not addressing our mental health. And depression and anxiety are by far the most expensive on our, there's a calculator. I can share a calculator, add that, that has for your workplace, how much it costs you for just major depression alone. So they have a pretty interesting calculator. You put in your employees and you put in a few data points, and it'll tell you per employee what the cost is to your organization for not addressing depression. And, we know that intervention, giving people treatment, is much more cost effective. They've done the studies, they've proven out the return on investment, than addressing it down the road, right, when someone is in the middle of a major depressive episode. We also know that the return on investment for children is at least 18 to 1. So from a return on investment standpoint. So it's a very powerful, return, and yet people still aren't taking it seriously. We often deal with problems when we're so far down into the problem, and yet there is so much we can do from a prevention standpoint. I mean, I developed the program because I know that had I been given these tools and taught these things, I would have had a much different experience. We don't capture most of the costs, I think, in these calculations that we do with depression, because, it affects how we treat other people. It affects our addictiveness, like what we become addicted to, obesity. I mean, it impacts all kinds of things beyond just what they measure in that $2.5 trillion. And even that number is staggering.
Okay, very. It's actually very challenging issues. Like example, how many actually expert we have around the world to solve this kind of problem, because it's billions of people we live here. Do you think that resources available to expert like you to solve this kind of things?
Yeah, the resources definitely are not there yet, and that's why we have to be super innovative right now about how we address it. That's why when I invested in the program for Hope, I mean, I'm a business. My mind is both business and research oriented. So when I created the program, I said it has to be something anyone in any culture can use, that they can adopt and use, and it has to be so that if it ever goes out of business, at least we'll have captured the insights and data. And because the problem is so big and the resources are so limited. We know that we don't have enough therapists for per capita in so many of the countries, and that's why there's in our curriculum, you'll see links out to other resources that are available. And there's a group called the Friendship Bench in Zimbabwe, and they have done a really innovative way of addressing this. So they teach something called problem solving therapy, which is an incredibly effective way to solve challenges. Like when you think about getting a job, problem solving therapy is a very effective way. And we have some of those kind of theories in what we teach our kids, but it's a regimented program that they teach anyone, and especially grandmothers in Zimbabwe are taught this, and then go sit on community benches, and anyone can come up and receive this therapy. So we don't have enough experts in the area, and yet that is why training people in innovative ways and how to deliver this content is so important. It used to be when I attended the World Health Organization event, they didn't want anyone other than the experts teaching, and yet we don't have the number of experts that we need to service all of humanity, and it is our biggest global challenge. And mental health impacts everything, and it impacts poverty, it impacts the environment, it impacts all of these different areas. And so addressing mental health globally is so important, and so we all have to be really innovative about how we get the tools out.
Okay, very interesting. So what about the online education? Like how actually your learning or your training or your resources, like example, people can engage from Malaysia and from Asia with your online education system, and how productive it is, or like online and offline, both of the things is important for your process. What your suggestion?
Yeah, so all our online content, I mean, you can go to the Mood Factory website, and those courses, we do charge for the courses. For Hopeful Minds, it's free. Anyone can access them. You can go online and you can download them. We do some seminars. You can follow us on social media and get links to when we do go online, and when we do training on specific things. But that is, I mean, really primarily we're all online now for everything.
Very interesting. So, like example, what's your life philosophy? Like this is so positive, so interesting things. You come and you contributing in that area. What's your life philosophy actually?
Well, my life philosophy is we can choose our moods. I mean,
Okay.
my life philosophy is we're supposed to be happy. Like we're supposed to be happy while we're here and having a joyful, engaged experience. And it is our own responsibility to do the internal work to get us there, to help retrain our mind to a lot of what society teaches us. I mean, one of the things we ask in our curriculum to little kids is, what is success to you? And success is always becoming a doctor, a lawyer, or getting a job, or, becoming an athlete. And we know from people that have achieved these things that that is not what success is. Success is how they feel about themselves and how they treat other people on the way to whatever vision. I mean, I believe each and every person here has a purpose and a mission, a unique and special mission, and it is up to them to figure out what that is. And a lot of society and other people can like kind of push down our missions or make us feel not good enough, or that we're not doing well. And So I believe that through our Hope curriculum, we teach kids that this isn't the kid, like we all are special and unique, and and how to find the resources internally so that no matter what other people are doing, we can kind of stay on our own path and keep, getting to the frontal lobe of the brain, which is where we are creative and can problem solve. I feel like we all deserve to live in that part of our brain and like really evolve from the reptilian fight or flight, terrified aspect of our minds. And so, yeah, so that's kind of my philosophy. And I've been able to get there much more than I ever was able to. I mean, I don't drink alcohol anymore. I don't really have addictions anymore. 15 years I haven't drank, and I've kind of battled a lot of the things that I've battled. Financial issues. I've, went through a divorce. I've come out, and I've been, for 5 years, probably been off medications and therapy, and really just been living in the moment and practicing kind of what I talk about. And I think everyone deserves the right to kind of get their own, have those skills so that they can do that for themselves.
Very interesting. Like example, do you have any strategy for, because in Asia we have many underprivileged people, and it's a huge amount of people actually. Like last few days ago, I take interview from India, from Pune. So they have also many, even from Bangladesh, from here. There are many underprivileged people from your organization or from UN or World Bank. Do they have any kind of strategy to provide this kind of underprivileged people this kind of services, or this kind of, they can motivate them, they can encourage them, they can change their mindset? In any strategy
Yeah.
you have?
So my strategy, I'll tell you my strategy for that. So there's Carol Dweck is a famous researcher, and she's developed what's called a growth mindset, where if you believe, if you believe you can change something, and you can change something, you can do it, you can have all kinds of better outcomes. And so I have what's called and developed what's called hopeful mindset, and how we maintain a hopeful mindset when we're dealing with all of these major challenges. So my goal, there are 16 lessons that go into it. And, we have scientists that I have that I want to give some of the science and the background around hopeful mindsets. And yet I can't teach a mother from India, for example, how to get out of poverty or how to overcome these specific challenges, because I personally haven't been there. And yet I know that there are moms in India that have overcome these challenges. And so my goal for Hopeful Minds and Hopeful Mindsets is to create a curriculum for these different challenges that women or men or youth are facing, using stories from people that have successfully overcome it. So that is my big, bold dream for this, because I know we learn through stories, and we learn through peers and examples of people that have been able to overcome these challenges. I know plenty of people that have lived in, well, I don't know plenty of people, and yet there are plenty of famous people that have lived in projects that have used hopeful mindset strategies to get out of the projects and create new lives for themselves. And yet they had to use a hopeful mindset to get there. They had to get themselves to a positive feeling state, and they had to take inspired action. And so that's my goal eventually, long term. And as I get funding, I'll be doing that. But we do, the curriculum is free and people can use it. And I think that is how we are going to elevate these different populations with these different challenges. Again, I don't think there's anything someone somewhere hasn't overcome already. And the challenge is just collecting these stories and highlighting them and consolidating them into sound bites so that we can learn from these people.
Okay, great. Can, like, we are like last part of the interviews, I think few minutes left. Do you have any specific advice for the youth, for our community, like any specific advice for them, for their mental health, for their personal life?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is the 90-second rule to like breathe for 90 seconds anytime you feel triggered or stressed or and just to never give up. Like there is, I mean, feelings always pass. Feelings can feel horrible and awful and terrible, and yet they always pass. So no matter how sad or how angry, if you can sit in that state, just feel it and not run to something else, but just feel it and let it pass through your body and release the energy associated with it, and then take inspired action. I mean, there's nothing somebody somewhere hasn't overcome, and you know, you never know what's right around the corner in life. You just never know, and things that feel like they'll never change or they're full of despair, you know, the next day a solution can appear. And so I just say, you know, never give up on life or whatever challenges.
Mhm. Thank you, Miss Catherine, and it's a very nice discussions. Hopefully, World Talent Economy Forum will make more discussions with you, and we will contribute together for changing the better life of human being. We love to contribute for the human being. We want to change human lives, but it's very important. Alone, for me, it's not possible. But with in between the whole community, if we work together, we team up together, we can contribute. Maybe step by step we can change human lives. And our main objective, we want to bring more talent people like you. We want to make them more economically successful. So this is our main objectives. So hopefully you will work with us, and World Talent Economy Forum always welcome you, and we will call you in the board again. And thank you for your time and everything. This is very nice discussions, and thank you from our core of our heart. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.